Hey, this is Jen Johans at filmintuition.com and Film Intuition on social media and Letterboxd. And this is Watch with Jen. This week, my friend Mike Miley returns to the podcast. Mike is the author of David Lynch's American Dreamscape, Music, Literature, Cinema, and Truth and Consequences, Game Shows in Fiction and Film. His writing on film has appeared in The Atlantic, Bright Lights Film Journal, Reactor, The Smart Set, and elsewhere. His next book, A Guide to Reading and Finishing David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest, will be published next year. He's currently working on an oral history of an 80s cult classic. Well, I am honored to have my good friend Mike Miley back. I had Mike on a couple times. I think the first time we talked about like game shows in the movies, quiz show, Magnolia, and I also had you on for Dennis Hopper, which was a lot of fun. I loved having over a dozen guests and putting them together, but it is so good to have you back to talk about a filmmaker you love. And one thing that's great about talking to Mike is because he is a film scholar, he will send you like 17 ideas for a podcast episode, and all 17 are amazing. And you're like, okay, we're going to start with this, but let's revisit like 4 of these. Yeah.
That's a positive spin to put on it. I would have said just Mike is very indecisive. But...
No, you're creative. I think that's actually kind of a good quality though. Well, it's an important one for film people is gotta be interested in a lot of different types of genres, filmmakers. I think if you just stay in your little area, it gets kind of boring.
Yeah, that's fair. No, true. Yeah. And I'm so glad that we went in the direction that we did. It's been so fun to prep for this.
Okay. So I know Jonathan Demme is, one of your favorites. Do you remember when you first got into him, when you were aware, like, this is a Jonathan Demme picture? I was trying to think that, I know I would have seen Stop Making Sense as a kid on TV or something, but the first movie I knew of him, of course, was Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. And I did see that when I was young, and then Philadelphia. And that made a big impact on me because my uncle had just come out, and in telling me about it, I was in middle school. My mom's like explained it, tried to do it simply, like, he wants a boyfriend instead of a girlfriend. And everybody's laughed at this ever since. I said, well, I want a boyfriend too. Like, am I gay? Yeah. So that was how I looked into that. So Jonathan Demme, those early movies, that were his big breakout movies. But what I love about this is we went back in time to his era of like documentary filmmaking and creative kind of like indie but not indie style movies. So talk to me about your history with Demme.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of similar to yours in that I think Silence of the Lambs and Philadelphia, those two kind of in close succession were the things I saw of his first, where he's kind of making his moving up into like prestige filmmaking, I guess more than what came before it. And then I think, I'm a huge fan of those films. And then I remember around the time of like, when Paul Thomas Anderson started getting big, every interview that he gave, when people asked him about his influences, he said, oh, there's 3, Jonathan Demme, and Jonathan Demme. And I remember thinking like, that's because of course in your head, you're like, oh, Scorsese, Altman, Tarantino, like these are of course, right? And then I'm like, really? The Silence of the Lambs guy? And at some point in there, I had probably seen Stop Making Sense because I was getting into Talking Heads when I was in college. But then I was aware of the Something Wild poster and had watched, I think probably the first time I watched any of that movie was, in like a film class. We watched like the first 15 minutes for like, to show you how continuity errors didn't matter because because if the storytelling is strong enough, you're not going to notice. So they showed us the beginning of Jaws where the sun and everything's all over the place. And then Something Wild where all the set decoration stuff is a little all over the place. And I think that might have been the first time I saw it. And so with his work, it's been a lot of dipping back into what he's doing and discovering all of these different facets of him that come before he's doing Oscar movies and things like that. And so I think, and it's something I'm still kind of doing, even recently, still digging up older films of his that I haven't watched yet. And I think it's kind of fun that he's different from a lot of filmmakers in the sense that every time you go back into him, you're kind of finding another phase or era or
Yeah.
style that is, you then realize retroactively is in all of the other movies of his that you've been watching. You just didn't realize where it came from or what was happening with it. And I think, more than a lot of filmmakers, he's like that and is a fun person to sort of get obsessed and re-obsessed with over time.
Yeah, and one thing I love about him is he really kind of embraced the idea of being like a journeyman filmmaker,
Hmm.
a workman, just there. Like he looked up to Bud Boddicker, who made movies very quickly, Raoul Walsh. I mean, these are great filmmakers, but I do kind of think of his movies because you think of the strong performances and the people who've won Oscars or been nominated. Mary Steenburgen in
Hmm.
Melvin and Howard, which I had completely blanked that was him. That movie is brilliant. I saw
Hmm.
that in the 90s because I was a huge fan of Paul
Oh
Lamont
yeah.
for
Yeah.
American Graffiti. So I was like, where is he? And
Hmm.
tracked him down to that one. But you kind of think of Demme sort of like Stephen Frears or Sidney Pollack or
Hmm.
Norman Jewison, one of these filmmakers who works really well with people but isn't a household name. And I think
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a cool way to think of it too. Cause he does have that, the background and coming out of Roger Corman, like all of the
Yes.
other big names and stuff, and where he doesn't quite break through in the same way that they do, but in some ways is equally, if not more idiosyncratic of a filmmaker than a lot of that cohort. And who's, I guess, yeah, you kind of always feel like you're coming back to somebody who's not getting the credit that he should. And so you sort of become a champion for him over and over again, which is really cool too. Because like, and I know we're going to get into this a lot, but like these movies are just so damn fun.
They
And,
are.
and it's something that kind of drops out of maybe the stuff in his later career, but just the joyousness and the exuberance that's on display in all of these movies. It's just hard not to get swept away by it.
It really is. Yeah, after the experience with Swing Shift, which
Mhm.
I remember seeing as a girl because my mom loved Goldie Hawn, so I watched all
Mhm.
of those movies early. I just did an episode of the B-side with Connor and Dan on Goldie
Mm.
Hawn, and we kind of touched on the mess that was Swing Shift. I know on one of my phones I have, like one of my old ones, somebody hooked me up with a different cut of Swing
Oh,
Shift. And
okay.
so I need to like go back in and find that and watch that because I'm wondering if that was more the Demi cut or it cut
Mm.
out some of the other stuff. So I would love to see that because I think there's a lot of good stuff in that movie, but it got taken away into let's make it a romance between Goldie and Kurt
Hmm.
and, battles with the leading lady. And he said in interviews, Demi, that he needed to fall back in love with filmmaking and the
Hmm.
zest for life and the zest for filmmaking. And then you see the next succession of movies like Stop Making Sense, Something Wild, like all of these are just fun. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's it. I was looking at it. I still haven't seen Swing Shift, and it was making me think though. It's so similar. I mean, almost down to the same years, basically, right? Like
Yeah.
David Lynch and Jonathan Demme have these terrible experiences making these big movies in 1984 that
Yeah.
sort of
Lynch
beat
with
them down
Dune.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they go in 1986 and make sort of like their second first movie, right? I think that's what Demme calls Something Wild, right? Where for both of them, it kind of seems like even though those like Dune and Swing Shift are big disasters, they are in some ways the most important films in their careers, right?
Yeah.
Because without them, you don't get everything else afterward. And certainly, I mean, in Something Wild, yeah, you really do get the sense, and in all of these movies, just how in love with the entire process of filmmaking and film history Demi is in this infectious to the viewer.
Yeah, I really didn't know too much about his upbringing or his younger years. I picked up one of the great University Press of Mississippi books, which I've kind of collected. I don't know, at this point I probably have like 15 of them. And I got a Jonathan Demme interviews used online for a couple bucks. Came from Boston Public Library's Central Branch, smelling like pot.
Yeah.
But you know what? It works and I'm good with it, and found a lot of good stuff. But yeah, I learned as a kid, his parents would take him to the movies a lot, but they would take him to like Black Orpheus or,
Mm.
those kind of films. He was reading subtitles at a young age and watching a little bit higher quality or some unexpected stuff. And then family moved from New York to Miami. He went to veterinary school, did not do well in school at all, but he went for the newspaper and became a movie reviewer,
Mm.
and said, once you get offered free movies, you're not going back. And I love that. So kind of like Schrader and all those guys started and, started in criticism and worked up.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean you can see it like in on not as overt a level as some of those other filmmakers, but something like Something Wild and Married to the Mob. I mean these are very much works of film criticism in the way that they play with genre
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So you can see those gears turning even if it's not what the whole movie's about.
That's a really great point, and that kind of brings us to our first one, Stop Making Sense,
Yeah.
going chronologically, because when David Byrne sat him down for that, or he sat Byrne down, he said, what is going to be different about this than like any other concert movie out there? Like the Talking Heads were a little, I don't know, do we want to do this? And he said that just like put him in his place immediately. And then he started thinking about, there have been a million concert movies, and while they love The Last Waltz, that is a true concert movie. And what he wanted to do was make this more of a performance art piece and kind of
Hmm.
focus, zero in on the band. I've seen this movie so many times by this point, but it wasn't until I read this interview with Demme where he actually put it into words that he didn't want to really focus on the audience or show the audience till the end of the movie, that I even paid attention to that, because it's just,
Hmm.
you're so invested and you're so into this band. I always get excited when the backup singers come out. They're my favorite part.
Oh, absolutely.
You get so distracted by it that you're missing what he's doing with the camera and the
Hmm.
lighting and all of that. So I love Stop Making Sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote down a joke. My dumb joke is that all three of these movies have like a goofy dancing guys with smoking ladies. It's like that's
Yeah.
every single one of Lynn Mavry and Stop Making Sense. And of course, Melanie Griffith and Michelle Pfeiffer in the other films. Like that's just the one of the threads uniting all of these movies. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you realize kind of looking at it like, oh wow, like the one thing that people expect concert movies to have, like all these shots of the audience, he makes them so unnecessary, right?
Mhm.
Because it's so immersive, and then you realize, oh well, you're the audience, right? I mean, and I think that's
Yeah.
why people have like there are lots of screenings of The Last Waltz or other concert movies, but they're not dance parties. The way that Stop Making Sense has become this kind of dance party screening movie,
Mhm.
and I think it's because of that, right? Like that people feel so a part of it that they can't just sit back and watch it. They feel like they're in the space. And and it's cool that, I mean, that's my favorite. I mean, the coolest thing, right? The slow adding on of people and instruments and stuff
So
as it goes
brilliant.
on,
Mhm.
like you are watching, like the movie's not afraid to show you the seams of the production, right? Like you see the lighting guys, you see the camera
Oh, I love
operators.
seeing the crew come out. Yeah.
Yeah. And like it's like sort of, this is a production, right? This is a group of people who are working on something together, and that you're kind of watching them make it before your eyes, which is
Mhm.
a kind of a cool, rather than trying to appear like, oh, it's, you don't want to see the strings, right? Shows you every string. And it sort of fits, like, I think I read somewhere, like there's kind of a narrative that David Byrne had in mind for this about like a guy who doesn't feel very comfortable, and all of that. And then like you watch this movie, yeah, it feels like this, like a party host who gets more comfortable the more people show up at the party, and by the end he's like completely at ease, but it takes a while because all the guests have to show up, and then like, oh, now it's a party, now it's happening, and then he can run out into the audience, right? Then we can acknowledge that there's people there. It's such a cool spin on that kind of movie that suddenly makes all the things that seem to be like the conventions seem extraneous.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think you see him sort of embracing movement. Like there's a little against his will almost in Psycho Killer, which opens it. He's got his acoustic guitar and he sets down that boombox right by a tape mark. So
Yeah.
right on the mark, like where he's supposed to. And you do see, and I noticed this yesterday, I don't know if I picked it up before, but you see like the crew off stage completely watching, like seeing, like, does he need anything? When do we go out? And just like they are, as Mike said, building it before your eyes. And we see David kind of embrace movement. Another, you get Tina Weymouth out there with her
Hmm.
guitar, and then, you get the drums, you get all of it piece by piece. If you haven't seen this movie in a while or you haven't seen it, you really need to.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's just amazing because Demme said when he saw the Talking Heads in like 77, they just stayed still the entire
Mm.
time and played. Just like stayed in one place. And he said, so it was really cool to see them a few years later, and now they're moving around, and this began his collaboration with David Byrne in the next
Hmm.
few. But exactly what you were saying, Spike Lee kind of even did stop making sense again with
Hmm.
American Utopia. Ellen
Hmm.
Kurras is the cinematographer, and it wasn't until the end when he goes around the entire
Yeah.
auditorium with everyone in it that we see the audience. So I like that.
Yeah, yeah, and the stuff about movement is really cool too, because yeah, I mean, like they're coming out of that, New York '70s like
Yeah.
buttoned up, tense, post-punk kind of world, and yeah, watching him then like get involved with Brian Eno and then start exploring polyrhythms and doing all these things in his music that like loosens everything up, and then by this point, yeah, I mean, like they missed out. Like Stop Making Sense could also be, I mean, in terms of movement, like it's a cardio routine, right? Like they really missed out on a whole workout regimen for this. Like you could do a Stop Making Sense, like, 30-minute workout and, get a lot healthier, right? I mean, I think that's kind of a wild thing is that like we associate David Byrne so much with being so stiff, and then here he kind of
Oh my
rebrands who he
gosh.
is as like this guy who can seemingly move in any kind of direction, right? Like these dance
Yeah,
moves are
he's
so wild,
Gumby.
and
Yeah,
yeah, and then
Gumby.
like dancing with a lamp, and
Yeah,
yeah.
which really would have taken some practice to weight it correctly, and he swings the lamp, and he moves left and right, up and down, and I was thinking about that, like, every time I watch it. Like, he probably pulled, well, everything, but he probably pulled stuff at different points in his career, and when he went to the doctor, I'm sure it was like, how did you hurt yourself? Have you seen my show? Like, my neck
Right.
goes up and down, and I go backwards and forth. Like, it's like, yeah, like he's a jack in the box and then pops up. It's amazing. It's hard to describe. They're running in place as they're singing, which, being somebody who did do like some community theater when I was younger, not very well, but I loved singing. But when I would have to do movement and sing at the same time, like you're out of breath, and
Hmm.
like it's just a workout. I did have a friend who says their mom in the late 80s, early 90s, wherever they lived, they did do some kind of aerobics thing because it's
Oh, wow.
only like 85 minutes or so. They did
Yeah.
the whole concert.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, because and to be able to do it and then also be like he's running in place while he's also singing like the definitive version of Life During Wartime, right? It's not
Yeah.
even like affecting his voice in any way. And, I'm out of breath just watching him, watching him do it. And that, in the lamp scene, yeah, like thinking about like, yeah, all the practice that had to have gone into that. And I think this sort of fits in with Demi's whole thing as well. The way that these movies feel so completely effortless and spontaneous and
They
off the
do.
cuff, and
Yeah.
yet they're so clearly the work of meticulous planning and thought. And, you're watching Byrne do that dance with the lamp and you're seeing someone with the confidence of knowing that thing's never going to hit the ground, right? Like that he can do
Yeah.
whatever he wants. There's no
Yeah.
way it's touching the ground because he's so on top of it. And it's just a marvel. But I mean, it's that at every level of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's like watching Gene Kelly grab that lamppost
Hmm.
and singing in the rain. Like, they make it look easy, like anyone can do it, but No, and nor
Yeah.
should you. You should not be mimicking David's movements because you're gonna like break every bone in your body, I think. It
Yeah,
is
don't try this at home, right?
incredible. Yeah, I know. What I couldn't believe is in American Utopia, at the end of it, you see him ride his bike home after
Hmm.
doing all of that in the concert, and you're like, what on earth? Like, I'm exhausted, as you said, just watching him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love this movie. I was glad to, have another excuse to rewatch it.
Hmm.
It was one that, like I said, I think I saw it as a kid, but for whatever reason, I hadn't really sat down and watched it until the pandemic. Then it became
Hmm.
my favorite pandemic movie.
Hmm.
And I have watched it, I think, half a dozen or more times at this point, according to my Letterboxd. And yeah, I just love it.
Yeah, I was trying to think if it's the movie I've seen in the most like different kinds of formats or settings, whether that's like, VHS, IMAX, a dance party, a DVD, I think
Yeah.
it might be because I guess, I mean, there's no bad format or way to put this thing on, right?
No,
Like
not at all.
it's an all-purpose movie.
Yeah, I mean, we always would say like no phones, but at the same time, if you want to rock out in your house, phone is fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yes. And then of course this brings us to something wild, which they were tight-lipped on the plot, and I have to say, for listening to this and you haven't seen the movie, sorry. We are going to spoil it. Hit stop, come back, watch the movie first. But I love that they were kind of so tight-lipped, they were just calling it like a romantic thriller,
Mm.
which is all they wanted to give away. My goodness, this movie takes you places. What I love is it's like 45 minutes of a screwball, sort of a really sexy screwball movie. Like she is basically Katharine Hepburn and bringing up baby, and Jeff Daniels is straight-laced. Although what I do love is he is no innocent.
Yeah.
Has done some things. Like he's going to rip off a restaurant at the beginning of the movie. And so it's almost like, as Demme said, what you do, it comes around again, and they keep, he said, not straightening up, and then stuff happens. And then 45 minutes in, it becomes a completely different movie. It's very colorful, chaotic, bright. And then into frame comes, all dressed in black, you got Ray Liotta, who Melanie Griffith actually recommended for the role because they knew each other very well.
Yeah, she was like in an acting class with him or something
Yes.
like that. Is that
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah, but I mean, what a screen debut, right? What
Oh
an
my God.
entrance, what an everything. I mean, just the most fully formed character actor, ever,
Yes.
just appearing, in his best and final form.
Yeah, yeah. And he has that sort of psychotic charm.
Hmm.
Or as my friend Sean Cosby would say, like a benevolent psychopath. Like he always
Yeah.
loves those characters the most, like Cheadle and, Devil in a Blue Dress, that kind of thing. He comes on with the charm, but what's great about it is just the way he greets Melanie Griffith. She knows exactly how dangerous he really is,
Hmm.
and she wants to get away right away. And then Jeff Daniels' character, he's kind of all of us. It's like, well, how bad, he's trying to be, genial and just like go with the flow. And this is not somebody to entertain. Yeah, this is a snake that's going to bite you. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's in the middle of his rebirth and like, oh, I'm cool with everything, and I gotta be
Yes.
like I gotta be
Yeah.
looser. Like, of course, let's go for a drink. Let's do that. And
Yeah.
so he's completely ignoring the signals that she is very clearly sending that like we need to get the hell out of here. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful. I mean, so he winds up being like as oblivious as he's always been, except now it's instead of getting him into like fun danger, it's going to get him into some real serious danger.
Yeah, they've been play acting that he was her husband. She brings him home. They go to a high school reunion. I mean, don't try to figure out this plot. It makes no sense whatsoever that all this just sort of happened. It is like a screwball movie where you're like, wait, we went from the golf course to jail? Like, it just changes into a different movie before our eyes. And you can kind of see that he was embracing those type of films because then when he made Married to the Mob, he compared it all the time to a Preston Sturges movie. So I think
Hmm.
this was kind
Hmm.
of his dry run, but what was cool about it is Pauline Kael did this great interview with him where she was saying something like, no, when it gets violent, the violence is not gratuitous, because otherwise it would make no sense without the first half of the
Hmm.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a cool movie that's like, it's really, you're watching a different movie every 10 minutes, right? It just,
Yeah.
you think you know, right when you think you know what it's doing, it pivots and does something completely different.
Yeah.
And, some of that is like and it's all, you're in familiar territory, right? With the classic kind of tropes of like, yeah, the screwball and then the kind of edgy noir film. But the way that the two, and so, I mean, which we would think of as being complete polar opposites.
Hmm.
And the movie plays with all of those opposites, wild and tame, light and dark, the rebel and the square. And the whole movie is just about either flipping them or blurring the line between the two to the point where everything winds up being the opposite of what it originally purported to be, right? Like you said, Jeff
Yeah.
Daniels' character, we think he's the square who's like
We think he's married.
yeah,
Yeah.
we exactly, yes, right? Like,
Yeah.
but like, and we forget that the very first thing we see him do in the movie is steal, right? When he
Yeah.
walks out on the check. But then like, yeah, we think, oh, he's the uptight married guy, the yuppie or whatever. And then it turns out, no, he's been lying about that the whole time. And so, and that her patronizing, you're a good liar, Charlie line winds up having that great callback when she says it again, except now it's completely sincere, and that
Yeah.
she makes that, and then you think she's this, the wild, bohemian with the Louise Brooks haircut and all of that. And then turns out, her classic line, like where she walks up to the door to her parents' house and turns out, "Be sure to call me Audrey, okay?"
Yes. And you're
It's
like, what?
by the way, like this is not my real
Yeah.
name,
I have a
but like
different name.
she changes her hair and like takes off the wig and it's so like she's always changing. I mean, I guess Ray's the character who's always who he is, right? Like there's no real reversal there, but there is a moment where, if I'm remembering, doesn't he wind up driving a station wagon at a certain point? And like, there's an earlier line, like where they're making fun of the station wagon, and then
Yeah.
he winds
Yeah.
up in a station wagon,
Something
and
like
she
that.
winds up with the station wagon at the end of the movie, right? Like, so there's all of every single category that the movie creates. It completely subverts it by the end, or puts the shoe on the other foot. And I think it's endlessly fascinating to think about like what it's playing with and how it's in a way like it's able to do it because like I don't know, like last time I was watching I was like, wow, this movie is free in the way the characters think they are or want to be but discover that they're not. And it's like only the movie is the true wild thing in the whole soup, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you were saying was right about the yuppie of it all. This isn't anything new. We've had that for decades. Like, I Love You, Alice B. Toklas with Peter Sellers, where he's like the square and then he discovers hippie culture, and that's a lot of fun. They've been doing this for a while, decades. You could have said The Flapper, the same thing.
Mm-hmm,
And,
mm-hmm.
but it's interesting because in this movie, there is a little bit of an undercurrent going through about the American dream
Mm-hmm.
and what the stock market people are doing, who's really honest and dishonest. The American flag is in the background in the
Mm-hmm.
scene where the Feelies are performing and they're dancing, and then Ray Liotta comes in and there's this great like blue and white on the left and
Yeah.
then black and then the backdrop of the flag, and what is that saying? So I do think that you can just like watch it as a fun movie. He talked about, learning from Corman to put chaos in the background and give the eye something because that helps the brain. But there's some other stuff going on and I love that.
Yeah, and especially like it's a great movie. I mean, you wouldn't want to watch it with the sound off because of all the great music
Yeah,
that's in it and the
yeah,
great lines of dialogue. But like you're saying, all of the signage and all of the stuff that's in the
yeah,
background, there's so much interplay going on between like the different kind of cultures that are colliding. I mean, it even happens in little throwaway moments where there's like a group of like b-boys, rapping outside of the gas station while there's also like a a Civil War
yes,
reenactor, with a cannon getting gas, like just everything that's sort of, like all these different strata and social groups rubbing shoulders with each other, and the movie and Charlie to a degree like embraces everything that it sees, right? And but yeah, you are getting that kind of tapestry of the country, but like you said, there is this undercurrent of looking back to the bicentennial year in 1986, and then sort of looking at, well, what's happened, like what's changed about this world, and I mean, in looking at it now, some 40 years later, we're even seeing more changes that have happened to that, like how many of those places that they're shooting in Florida, like aren't there anymore, or something
Yeah.
like that. Like what's happened to the landscape is a fascinating thing to look at in the movie as well.
Yeah, it does kind of introduce one of his recurring themes that, I mean, again, we saw it in Melvin and Howard and stuff, and in Swing Shift too, to some extent, which is a character trying to embrace a new life or trying to
Hmm.
change desperately, go from one world to a different world, whether that's good or bad. In Melvin and Howard, we have a guy who rides around with Howard Hughes, and he leaves him money, but he was the only one to witness that. Of course, he knows he probably never get that money, but it's, the battle of what happens after Swing Shift. It's World War II. The ladies have to go back to work, and then, the men come home and they're pushed back in the kitchen, that kind of thing. And then this movie starts, and Daniels is a yuppie. He was just going to go back to work. Then another new world. And I think another great one we see is, in our next movie, Married to the Mob, embracing a different world, a different life. He really likes doing that with women, I've noticed.
Hmm.
Because like in Silence of the Lambs, you
Hmm.
have, she's trying to get out of the boys club and, start over, get taken seriously in her field and like put whatever behind her. And you see it again and again. And so as fun as some of these movies are, not Silence of the Lambs, that's not fun. There is kind of a thing that sort of unifies them as much as it's like, how do you plug these movies together?
Right.
But yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that struck me too, watching Married to the Mob again for this. I mean, one, the the line in that one, that everybody deserves a second chance, that seems to be like
Yeah.
that unifying thread in a lot of these. And yeah, in Melvin and Howard, they're like the world's telling him, no, you don't. And
Yeah.
that's the real crime of the movie. And then in Something Wild, it is everyone in that movie is looking for a second chance of some sort, perhaps
Yeah.
especially, Lulu/Audrey, who's,
Yeah.
she's obviously reinventing herself in lots of different ways. And then perhaps part of her plan all along is I need some way to go back to my high school reunion having reinvented myself, right? Because she's
Yeah.
trying to get away from this life that she had with Ray. It's like, I need to show everybody that I'm a different person, and let me just grab the biggest square, or something that I
Yeah.
can to tell people like, look, I'm normal now, or I want you to look at me differently. And it's really moving how like that plays out in the movie, where by the end, I guess this is probably a stretch, but like her and Charlie at the end are both wearing black and white when they go off
Mhm.
together. Like they subtly match with their clothes. So the
Yeah.
sense that they've kind of, met in the middle to some degree. But then, yeah, like I love the point you're making about how much of Silence of the Lambs' gender dynamics are prefigured in Married to the Mob, in the
Yeah.
way that both of those movies are so much about a woman going into these male-dominated spaces and demanding to be taken seriously. And I mean, it's put much more at the forefront in Silence of the Lambs, but it's very much there in Married to the Mob too.
Yeah, and I think also, the identifying with the women characters is strong. Oprah Winfrey, of course, famously chose
Hmm.
Demme out of all the filmmakers to do Beloved.
Yeah.
And even though that movie didn't work for me personally,
Hmm.
that says something about her faith, and I think it's because you can't adapt that Toni Morrison
Yeah.
and do it justice. And I think that's it. It was a difficult book to adapt.
Hmm.
But, he did his damnedest, and he
Right.
has enough empathy and care. Like, he was going to direct Boys in the Hood. A lot of people don't know
Mm.
that. And then when he found out, no, let's have a black filmmaker, of course, And so he was pointing out, like, Spike Lee flew the door open, and so, and I think by this point, by the point of Married to the Mob and also Something Wild to some extent, he started producing
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and started kind of giving a hand to the next generation of filmmakers. Yeah, like Nancy Savoca and a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
them, which is really cool. I had not seen Married to the Mob since probably the early 90s on
Mm-hmm.
television. I
Mm-hmm.
know. So, or wait, maybe I watched it once when it was on Criterion, but whatever, it felt like a really long time. It's a lot of fun. I don't remember liking it like the first time, or maybe I just didn't get it because it's a very different movie.
Yeah.
But I love Matthew Modine in it. I
Mm-hmm.
actually, as much as Jeff Daniels is kind of us, I actually found the Matthew Modine character to be like way more charming, interesting. But then again, just like Something New or Something Wild, there is the staccato burst of violence, the shootout in the drive-through. There's some crazy stuff that goes down in that movie. And yeah, so this was a good one to watch too. I'm glad that we chose this one.
Yeah, yeah, and now I'm remembering I did see this one like on HBO or something like that. So this may have been the first Demme movie that I saw, just because it was, a big movie that was playing and stuff, and I didn't remember very much about it until I started watching it again recently. But yeah, I mean, I mean, it's a shame that Something Wild already was used as a title for a Demme movie, because like it almost seems like it fits this movie just as well, because this is the most kitchen sink of kitchen sink movies, right? Like even watching the opening credits and you're just seeing all the people in the movie. It's like every time a new title card comes out, you're like, oh hell yeah. Oh, this person's
Yeah.
in it and this person, you got to be kidding me. And it's wonderful you just know you're in for a wild ride if you can assemble this group of people together, even though like some of the people in that list only have like one or two lines in the movie. Like it doesn't matter. Like they're all bringing it at 11, for this film. And then the production design is like, hold my beer. We're going to be louder than that. Like everything in the movie is trying to one up, what's come before it. And it's just, I mean, I don't think like is there a movie that's in love with movies more than this one, right? Like it just absolutely,
Yeah.
because it's a gangster movie. It's a screwball comedy. It's a
Yep.
50s women's melodrama, right? Like it's like you want another movie? We're going to put that movie in here too. Like it's hard. Like even though it's, of these three films, it's definitely my least favorite, right? But it's very hard not to like a movie that is just this in love with like it feels like it's getting away with something, right? Like I mean it's almost like
Yeah.
that's the mob element of it. It's like wow, how this part of the movie wound up in here. Oh, it fell off a truck, or whatever. Like we just
Yeah.
wound up with it. It's so much fun.
It really is. And I know, like, he kept comparing it to Sullivan's Travels when he was talking about
Mm-hmm.
what he was doing, where it was like this woman trying to lead this one existence, but society keeps pushing her back and back and back. Which is interesting because I think when most people talk about Sullivan's Travels, they talk about the Joel McCrea character. So I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was interesting. He was more interested in the Veronica Lake character. And
Mm-hmm.
just like with this one, I know he thought, well, let's show what Melanie Griffith can really do with Something Wild. Same thing you get with
Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer. This was a totally different performance than like, this would have been around the same time as like Frankie and Johnny, Fabulous Baker Boys,
Yeah, our Dangerous Liaisons, same
yes,
year.
yeah,
Yeah.
like same era.
Mm-hmm.
She is great. Like I said,
Yeah.
and he was pointing out, Modine had mostly been in like serious stuff, like,
Mm-hmm.
Full Metal Jacket and whatever. And then you get him in this. And just because he said I wanted to give him a change of pace, which I love. It's also a cool bridge movie between Something Wild and Silence of the Lambs in terms of subjective camera.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean the bathroom fight between Leota and Jeff Daniels,
Yeah.
you get a lot of subjective camera, not as much as you get, like Paul Thomas Anderson has pointed that out in Silence of the Lambs. That's like
Mm-hmm.
a masterclass in it. But this was sort of the next step. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because that's like his like Demi's signature kind of thing, right? And it's amazing how because I'm pretty sure if I remember, it's in Melvin and Howard, like in the courthouse thing. Because I was at first because it's not in Something Wild until the big moment, right? And then I'm like, wait, was this the first time he did it? And then just starts doing it more after. It's like, oh no, he he had been doing it before and just withheld it for this to
Yeah.
make that moment really have the impact it needed to, which is really cool. But yeah, it steps up a lot in Something Wild. Yeah, and I think with Michelle Pfeiffer's performance, and I was racking my brain, like, has she ever done anything like that, like this since? Because I mean, it just feels like that's a whole range of her ability that other movies just aren't
Yeah.
really showing. And it's kind of great. Like it prefigures so many, I mean, like, cause you're watching this and you're like, okay, well, this is prefiguring Lorraine Bracco and Goodfellas. It's prefiguring Marissa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny. Like it's got like all of
Mhm.
these other archetypal roles that come after it, but she's seldom in the conversation about kind of great mob movie female performances, and yet this film is an incredibly demanding performance on her, and she hits it out of the park in a way that you're like, how did this not completely define her career afterward?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. We were talking off air about, well, a number of things, but one of them was actress Winona Ryder. And you think about the same time period with Night on Earth, a performance like
Hmm.
that from Winona
Yeah.
or Heather's or this. And then we started using her more and more in just like heavy drama, so many period
Hmm.
films. And it's kind of like what we did with Michelle.
Hmm.
We did kind
Hmm.
of keep Melanie in that mode. Working Girl, I mean, is phenomenal. She did do some more serious stuff in the
Hmm.
90s, but for the most part, Melanie is playing the same wilder Melanie.
Hmm.
Michelle, it would have been cool to see her in more comedy. I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean it's and to see the I don't know, like I guess the amount of um obstacles that her character has are because I think a cool thing that I was looking at with this a script originally had her kind of transitioning into another like upper middle class neighborhood or something like that after she
Oh,
leaves.
okay.
And Demi was like, no, she can't, like, it can't be that much of a lateral move for her character. Like, let's send her to the East Village. Like, let's have her really go somewhere completely out of her element and have to fend for herself in a different way. And I mean, it completely transforms the movie, but it gives the character so much more to work with and to work against, and kind of demand to be taken seriously. And I think it's such a great adjustment, a great note to make for that film. I can't
Yeah.
imagine the movie being half as effective if she was just like in a different part
No.
of Long Island, you know?
Yeah, then it becomes like Edward Scissorhands or something where it's like,
Hmm.
that in
Hmm.
suburbia or something boring like that. So I do like that idea of she's in the wild, but like a different kind of wild. But yeah, thinking of Michelle, it would have been interesting to see. I was imagining the other actresses of this era. Like, can you imagine Michelle in like Sleepless in Seattle?
Mm.
Or Harry Met Sally. I think she would have
Hmm.
been interesting and,
Yeah.
it would have been, a different play on it. But we might have been discounting what she could do in her range. I think she has a
Hmm.
lot of sparkle. She's the no-nonsense one. She's more in control, of course, than Matthew Modine, who is this nerdy guy who works for the FBI and he's like in the building spying. And then, of course, he, falls for her. That whole thing is very funny. They keep running into each other, which feels like a 40s movie again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, the thing with the
yeah,
chair and the elevator and then
yes,
him having to like fake a sneeze for a really long time. Like,
yeah,
and he's, it's fun to watch the disconnect between how cool he thinks he's trying to come off
yes,
as and then how like comically inept he is at the same time. That
yeah,
is the sort of endearing thing for him. That's really pretty fun, but it hits a real, you know, I think it's all earned and borne out with the night that they're like when they go back to her apartment and the first date
yeah.
kind of gets broken up, and the way that that scene resolves, I think it really makes that relationship feel, it becomes something that you root for in the movie, more than just, well, we know that this is the sort of thing that has to happen in this movie, right? Instead it becomes, no, I'm really invested in this needs to work out.
Yeah, and I think an element that's in these movies in the 80s from Demi that was maybe missing in the 90s, they were more in a certain genre mode, is the fact that danger could just come out of left field. Like,
Mm.
you could be having a beautiful day, you could be in the drive-through at the fast food place, or you could be at your high school reunion. Like, danger just sort of pops up out of nowhere. When
Hmm.
Pauline Kael talks about Something Wild and this kind of time in Demme's career, she was pointing out how much she likes that, and the word she used was unhighfalutin. She likes how unhighfalutin Demme's movies were. They were more democratic, and I think also in terms of tone. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. Like, yeah, because it is like danger can bust in the scene at any moment. All bets are
Yeah.
off all the time. And in Married to the Mob, it's also like outrageous comedy can burst in as well. And sometimes it's the same package. Like Mercedes Rule is both in one, you know?
Yeah.
But like, but yeah, I think and it's something where definitely this disappears in his later work. Like he's not afraid to be, for lack of a better word, tacky, you know,
Yes.
and I say this lovingly, like Married to the Mob is the tackiest
Oh
movie,
my gosh, I
but
know.
it's one of its charms. Like it's one of the things that,
Yeah,
like
it's the
that the
plastic on a
gangsters,
couch, basically. It is
yes,
of movies, it's the plastic on the couch. Yeah.
yes, like the gangsters run this cheesy ass
Yes.
Italian restaurant, and
Yeah.
then their love shack is some weird, like no, they're like no, they're run. It's not. They're running like medieval times, right? Is like their front restaurant, and then they've got like this tacky love motel that is the
Yes.
place that they like to hang out. I mean, like it is completely unbelievable, but you also kind of feel like, well, why wouldn't I want to go with this? It's a movie. It's fun, damn it. Like this is what we
Yeah.
should be doing.
Yeah, it's more of a dream world. And around the same time, I think it was 1990, yeah, the same year as Goodfellas, there was My Blue Heaven, which was
Yeah.
another gangster comedy, but at the same time, as sort of funny as and high key lighting and sunshine and, Steve Martin of it all as it was, this is the weirder one. And so
Hmm.
it's kind of like that's the mainstream movie, this is the weirder movie. So it would be interesting to put those two films together in a double
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's been a while since I've seen it, but like I'm pretty sure like you're never sitting there in My Blue Heaven worried that somebody's going to get hurt, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and in
Rick
Married to the
Moranis
Mob,
is not going to die. Yeah.
yeah, right, yeah. Ever, let's hope. But like the
Oh God,
in
yes. Knock on
yeah,
wood. Yes.
right. In Married to the Mob, like I mean, you're getting like you're getting an endearing character like Nancy Travis's character and Alec Baldwin's character. Like they're
Yeah.
gone like right away, and it's like there's no guarantee that anybody's going to stay in this movie for very long. And that just seems like like you said, he's just rolling right on the momentum of Something Wild, where there's no guarantee that your light and bubbly movie is going to stay that way because life doesn't work like that. And it winds up, but it also makes the joyous, exuberant stuff more joyous and exuberant because that's it makes it more precarious and fragile.
Yes. No, absolutely. And so from this period on, he becomes a household name, as we were talking
Yeah.
about, with Silence of the Lambs in Philadelphia. And also does some great producing.
Hmm.
Bringing back a movie I love is That Thing You Do, which was
Hmm.
Tom Hanks', debut as a director. But it's Gary Goetzman,
Yeah.
producer, and it's like Goetzman was his partner on Stop Making Sense. So one thing that's really cool about a lot of these guys, Spike Lee and Demme, and especially the New York filmmakers, is they built these networks of people. And they
Hmm.
just kept using the same people, which I think
Yeah.
is great. Yeah.
Yeah, and for him, it's like people in front of and behind the camera, right? Like all
Yeah.
the actors he keeps bringing
Yeah.
back. I mean, like sure, Charles Napier is going to be a chef, why not? Or Charles Napier is going to be
Yeah.
a hairdresser. Like let's bring him in, like of course. And yeah,
David
Gutzman
Byrne is
being
going to do the music for Marriage to the
yes,
Mob. Yeah.
like it's just
Instead
basically
of
once you're
Ennio
with him.
Morricone, who we thought of. Yeah. Yeah.
Like once you're with him, you're in the family, and
Yes.
you're gonna be invited back all the time. And Getzman, I guess this is he's apparently like kind of some of his stories are what the stuff in Licorice Pizza is based on
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
Like his upbringing, and I mean that might be the most Jonathan Demme of Anderson's movies,
Anderson's
right? I mean,
movies.
like that
Yeah.
definitely has more of that vibe and that warmth and sort of wildness that we get out of the Demme movies here.
Yeah. Yeah, you see sort of sparks of it. Like I would say
Hmm.
Melora Walters in Magnolia is maybe a
Hmm.
Demme character and
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
John C. Reilly's character. Yeah, you see sparks of
Yeah.
it, but you're
Yeah.
also seeing the Altman and having like yeah, like Julianne Moore's character is definitely from a different movie.
Yeah. Right.
But I love that. That's interesting to consider the way that he was influenced so heavily by it. So
Hmm.
talking about other movies he made throughout his career, I think he talked about in fiction, you want to make it as real as possible, and in
Mm.
documentary, you want to make it more entertaining. And so it was interesting with the dichotomy between fiction and nonfiction filmmaking. But he used some of his techniques from documentary in the realm of fiction storytelling. So what other ones of his you want to give a shout out to,
Oh
either
yeah.
before or after this period of filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the stuff after is, I mean, certainly has probably had, like, people are very familiar with. And I
Yeah.
mean, I like his, Neil Young concert films. I
Oh, I
think those
agree
are
with
pretty
you.
good.
Yeah.
Um, and, particularly the one that's of the Prairie Wind tour. I don't remember if that's Heart of Gold or a different one, but I
I
get the names
remember
confused.
loving Heart of Gold, but yeah.
Yeah. But the earlier stuff, I just recently watched, Who Am I This Time,
Okay.
on YouTube. It's like he made it for PBS. It was like an American Playhouse movie that's got
Oh, wow.
Christopher Walken and Susan Sarandon in a like small community theater production of, oh God, now I'm blanking on what play they're doing. And like, I think it's based on a Kurt Vonnegut story. John Cale
That's
does the music.
amazing. Wow.
Walken and Sarandon are together, and like, I guess, she's maybe a newcomer to town who's like doing community theater to meet people, and he's like the Brando of the community theater. And it's this like really darling romance about how these two people who can only really connect with each other when they're acting. And it's really it's really pretty fascinating.
What is it called again?
It's called Who Am I This Time?
Okay, I need to
Uh,
watch that.
yeah, it's
I think
really fun.
everyone listening wants to watch it now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I guess another one that I mean, in Melvin and Howard, like we said, I mean, that's just such a wonderful
Yeah. Hard
movie.
movie to find, but great.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but I guess that one's going to be, is that part of the Criterion
I hope
list in
so.
July? I think it might be. I hope
I am
so.
surprised that hasn't been released yet.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because I have a DVD of it from like, I guess, but it was like the $5 bin kind of DVD. Like it's a bare bones thing. And then I
Yeah.
also recently watched Last Embrace. Have you seen that one? Uh,
No.
he does like this, it's Demme from like 79 doing this Hitchcockian thriller with Roy Scheider.
Okay.
Um, and it is bonkers. Like it's like Demme doing some sort of Hitchcock script that has De Palma's notes on it, and then he just goes his own way with it. And it's so weird and so paranoid and like very different from all of his other stuff. But it's got this fun thing that I noticed in Something Wild too. The openings, there's like this isn't really a spoiler. There's like an opening shootout in a restaurant in the opening scene, and like half of the actors, or there's a number of actors in the scene who are getting shot at who are filmmakers, like Jim McBride and some others. And then in Something Wild, there's John Sayles and John Waters, who are in there
Yeah.
as bit parts. And I just thought this was interesting that how he's casting filmmakers in these certain parts, particularly in some of his more self-conscious movies, that
Yes.
he's like
And
peppering
musicians like Chris Isaac and yeah.
yes, right. Yeah. Like all these other artists that he peppers
Yeah,
his
I
movies
agree
with.
with you.
I mean, I think it's especially interesting with, that in Something Wild when he's trying to like, sort of reignite his love of movies, that he picks two independent film icons, like two mavericks, like Sayles and
Yeah.
Waters. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
and really that's kind of that movie and Married to the Mob in some ways are like a marriage of like John Sayles' human side with John Waters' aesthetics, and
I yeah, I can
it's
see
all, I mean,
that. Yeah.
I mean, maybe more Married to the Mob. Like it certainly is more the like designed by like John Waters' people or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
Last Embrace
Maybe
is
a few
super
meets
fun.
Hairspray or something. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I would say before watching Last Embrace, don't look at any poster art for it because the
Okay.
posters have
Good.
like a ridiculous spoiler. Like the entire, it's a
Oh
great
no.
poster, but it
Okay.
is like the most bonkers spoiler because it's something from like the last 5 minutes of the movie. It's like, what are you doing? But I'm sure it got people into
Yeah.
as much as it, I don't know how well it did, but like, it would have gotten people in to see it. But like, it's a really fun, it's a really fun movie.
I didn't
Yeah.
even
What are
think
the other
about
ones
that.
that
Oh,
you're into?
I was just gonna say I didn't even think about that with posters, but it was Sean Burns brought up how the French Connection poster is like the spoiler of all time,
Yes.
right on the front.
Yes.
It's like wow, yeah. So that was interesting to.
Yeah. Yeah. What
Um.
are the other Demi films
Oh
that you
boy.
like or want to shout out?
Um. Let's see. I think we kind of touched on all of them. I was never a huge fan of Silence of the Lambs as much as other people.
Mhm.
So I will say that, and I'm gonna get like a bunch of hate mail, but it's impeccably directed, and Jodie Foster is incredible, and so is Anthony Hopkins in it. I do think. Heart of Gold, yeah, Neil Young,
Yeah.
that's a really good one. Oh, Jimmy Carter, Man from Plains was
Oh yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
And I will say also, I really liked his remake of The Manchurian Candidate. That is very
Yes.
good. Yeah.
I think it is very underrated. Yeah, I really like that movie. I mean, what Liev Schreiber does in that film, like when he gets activated in the way that, that's when Demi does his like
Yeah.
subjective camera look. And I think like they do some light effects in the background. If I remember, like the lights kind of dim behind his head or something. Yeah, that's a fun movie. I've only seen it, I think the one time in the theater, but like I really liked it and people were, kind of down on it. But I'm like, it's, of his remakes, it's definitely the one I like a lot better, than Truth About Charlie.
Yeah. I haven't seen Rachel Getting Married since it came out. So I couldn't tell you that, but I do remember I liked it more than, what was the horrible one? Margot at the Wedding.
Oh yeah.
That was a nails on chalkboard movie for me. I mean, I love Baumbach, but it was like, dude, no. So I think the better one was Rachel Getting Married. Was that his
Yeah.
last movie?
Well, he's got that other one. I haven't seen it, but was it Ricky and the Flash with
Oh, you're
Meryl
right.
Streep?
Yes.
I still haven't seen that one.
I haven't either. Okay.
But I think that's what's sort of fun, right? It's almost like I don't
Yeah.
want to see every Jonathan Demme movie yet. Like, it's kind of fun to still have some more to track
Yeah.
down and watch. So wait, can I tell you my, can I tell you my Silence of the Lambs story?
Of
I know you're not
course. Yeah.
like, so when we lived in Los Angeles, at the school I worked at in California, one of the other people who worked in the office, she and her husband were friends with Ted Levine from like back in Chicago, like when they were all like kind of young, hungry artists. And they invited us to Thanksgiving dinner one time, and they were like, we did a couple Thanksgivings with
Yeah.
them, and they're like, I think Ted's going to come this time. And I'm like, to my wife, I'm like, we have to go. Like, we are not doing anything else. And so it turns out, yes, Ted Levine, like I had Thanksgiving dinner with Ted Levine, but the best part, and it's my wife was carving the turkey in the kitchen, and he came up behind her and he's like, oh, can I just have a piece of skin off? And she's like, oh God, Ted, take it. Like, she, like she thinks Silence of the Lambs is impeccably directed, but doesn't feel like seeing it again.
Yeah.
But that's her. I mean, she like jumped out of her
I
body,
bet.
for that,
Yeah.
but it's
Poor
my
Ted.
favorite Thanksgiving ever.
That is hilarious. I did babysit for a woman named Sarah, and her adorable son she went into labor during Silence of the Lambs because she
Oh
got so
wow.
scared.
Oh my
And
God.
her husband Joe was a canine cop, and he was like, wait, my son is going to be born from Silence of the Lambs. So I think that scared the hell out of him for a little bit. Cutest kid ever. But yeah. That'd be a weird, like, story. Yeah, I was born during Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But I
Yeah.
mean, I believe it. I mean, that would be of
Oh,
all the
yeah.
movies to do that would work. That would.
Yeah, I think the ending for that movie
Hmm.
is the thing that stays with me. It is so brilliant. Yeah, with the night vision goggles and how he achieved that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible. It's really incredible.
Even though I've only seen it like 3 times in my life, probably, that sticks out. Yes.
Yeah. It's got so many indelible images that, you can't really forget them. But I mean, that's in all of these films, right? There's like these iconic things, right? Whether it's, David Byrne in the big suit, or, Melanie Griffith's look.
He said, because he said, I needed to make his head look smaller, which is funny. Yeah. No, this was a lot of fun. I really liked your idea, Mike, and we'll have to do the other 16 in the future.
Absolutely. No, very happy to do it. It was so fun.
Of course. I think you need to write a book on Demme. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's, I got to figure out if I figure out a way in, I'll certainly do that. But yeah, I mean, it's, looking at these and just like seeing how much they have to offer for repeat viewings, and to just kind of think about, but also the joy of getting to feel like you're discovering them or rediscovering them. Like when I watched Something Wild to prep for this, I wound up like showing it to a group of friends who had never seen it before. That was kind of great, to sit in a room of people who didn't know what was coming next. It was a real, that kind of felt like I'm seeing it again for the first time, because there's all these people who don't know what's about to happen. It was really great.
I love doing that. When I had on Ace Atkins, we were talking about No Way Out, and his wife had not seen it. And so he was like staring at her the whole time.
You're not watching the movie anymore. You're watching the other person watch the movie.
Which is why we love film.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. It was great. Thank you.
I also want to thank everyone for listening, especially my patrons who support the show and help fund my research, equipment, film rentals, RSS fees, and more for as little as $1 per month at the Film Intuition Patreon, which is the home base for the show. Other ways you can support the podcast are by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to Watch with Jen wherever you get your podcasts, and also checking out the cool merch store hosted and created by our talented logo designer, Kate Gabrielle. You can find the merchandise store, including shirts, tote bags, stickers, and more, by visiting filmintuition.com and clicking on the shop link. The show's theme music is Solo Acoustic Guitar by Jason Shaw and is available in the Free Music Archive. Well, until next time, please take care and happy movie watching. This is Jen Johans at filmintuition.com and Film Intuition on social media and Letterboxd. And this is Watch with Jen.